All right, we are back. The South African Revenue Service says it's aware of an e-filing problem that some taxpayers are experiencing. And in the meantime, the tax season opened on Monday for taxpayers who use the e-filing in the SARS Mobi app. The tax agency said the problem occurs when users save their income tax return, immediately reopen the return, and then press the tax calculator button before the form has fully rendered. According to SARS, the problem is aggravated when taxpayers click multiple times as they try to review their return. SARS will be putting in a fix where all the buttons, including the calculator button, will be grayed while the form is still loading. The enactment of the carbon tax has raised awareness in how business and consumers are going to comply in order to contribute to environmental and behavior and protection of the environment, I beg your pardon. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been making input in increasing vigilance of the community on the implications of change in weather patterns on the environment. Since the implementation of carbon tax, various experts have weighed in the benefits thereof and how this legislation can help contribute to the fiscus. So to discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Sifiso Ntombela, who is an agricultural economist with the Agricultural Marketing Council, and he joins us from our Pretoria studios. Well, Dr. Ntombela, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for waiting. What is, in policy terms, are the implications of this policy in as far as the agricultural sector is concerned?
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your listeners at home. And thank you for having me. I think the carbon tax policy is one of the initiatives started by government of South Africa as part of a good global citizen to try and find an internationally coordinated effort to reduce emissions that are growing across the world. Now, you will notice that, or you will remember that South Africa is one of the signatories of the Paris Agreement that was signed in 2015 under the leadership of the late former Minister of Environmental Affairs, Edna Molewa. Now, the carbon tax itself, it's one of the tools that South African government has passed with the immediate effect coming in on the 1st of June as a tool that will assist the country to reduce its emission by at least less than 42% by 2025 below the business as usual scenario. Now, you rightfully asked me that to say what are the likely impact of that. So what we have seen is that because it will increase, it's more of a fuel levy tax that is coming up into the production processes of many industries. It will likely affect those industries that are heavy emitters of emissions. So most of those are industries that are within the energy space, that are within the metal and steel, as well as the transport services system. So industries that find themselves in those sectors, or businesses that are within those sectors, will be likely more affected than others. But again, also the agricultural sector, which is the third biggest emitter of the emissions in terms of South African, will also be affected by this inaction of the policy because it rely on the energy, on the fuel and other inputs that are energy related. So there will be that indirect cost that will be actually taken off by these businesses.
Just to come in there, there's been a decline in GDP contribution of the agricultural sector, and also the sector has been bleeding jobs. Now, since the introduction of this legislation, do you think that it is really counterproductive in as far as what it envisages to achieve?
I think you're right. Generally, the country's economy is at its weakest point. So it's much more vulnerable to any external shock that is coming in. As you rightfully said, that we have seen that manifesting through the jobs losses. We lost about 12,000 jobs in the last quarter, declining about 13.2%. So what you will likely to see is already a very weak system that will be further damaged by this cost policy coming out. But I must say that while in the immediate term, the tax will actually put more pressures in the economic activities of certain sectors, it is actually a cost that in the long term it is necessary to ensure that we retain a sustainable and a cleaner environment environment, but we also mainly sustain the economy for the next future generation that will be able to reap the benefits we are currently benefiting for now. So, for example, if you're looking at the GDP level, you are likely to see the impact of the tax in the next 5 to 10 years decreasing by anything between 0.8 to 1.2% relatively to the baseline. Now, in today's terms, that the relative...
Dr. Ntombela, this could be counterproductive. The president wants to create 2 million jobs in not so distant future. But again, we're bleeding so many jobs. I mean, like, take a look, for example, in the sugar tax. Since it was introduced,
correct,
our example in KwaZulu-Natal, Tongaat is letting go of their employees. And when you ask the question, why should you tax to generate income for the fiscals, but putting the people on the streets?
I think we need to be more broader than looking at that narrow definition of it. You're right that it might be contradictory into the drive of creating jobs. But remember, agriculture is one of the sectors that can also benefit in the green economy. For example, some of the industry, one of those that you've mentioned now, which is the sugar and some of the grains, could be one of the industries that benefit in the biomass energy as part of the energy mix that we are driving in there. So you might be able to lose some of the jobs in some sectors, but at the same time, there's an opportunity that you have to take into account of it. Now, over and above that also, remember we are in the 4th industrial revolution, which is trying to shift some of these industries away from the primary level into the upper stream manufacturing. So those are some of the opportunities that needs to be taken into account to say, how do we ensure that we use these policies that are contradictory, as you say, but make them be incentives that drive investors to make environmental friendly decision in the future. So I think while it is definitely a pinch now, but it also offers an opportunity to say, what are the new markets that has never been tapped in the past that we can now start getting to, that will create those jobs that we are looking for?
Okay, so just your parting shot, since the National Agricultural Marketing Council is playing an advisory role to the Minister of Agriculture, what input are you making so that you can create a balanced scale of affairs in as far as addressing this issue without reducing money for the fiscals, but also without increasing the numbers of unemployment?
Thank you for that. I think what we're trying to see, we are at a tipping point within the sector itself. What we did, there's a trade-off. Over the last 5 or maybe even 10 years, we've been mainly driven about the sectors that create jobs, intensive jobs at the primary level, but also export generators so that they can help us to earn foreign earnings. What we're saying now is that there's probably a need of shift of starting to focus on some of those sectors that will not only just give us foreign earnings, but will ensure that it's sectors that are able to drive rural development, be able to promote poverty alleviation, and ensure that more people are actually joining the industry. You will realize that within the agricultural sector, it's a sector that is very exclusive. It's been driven relatively by about 30 to 40,000 commercial farmers. We are saying that as an advisor, we are putting up front to say, focus on some of those sectors that are able to promote the new inclusivity and be able to have more players play into the sector, creating more jobs, but driving the innovation of it. One of the areas that we've been lacking on is concrete investment in research and innovation, which has made us to actually leap behind our other developing counterparts. So one of the areas we are saying that while you are driving for jobs, but ensure that you are making investment and infrastructure in those areas where people are sitting and in those areas where people are actually dependent. By so doing, you will be able to create some of this production that we are heavily relying now on imports, which will then do this import substitution and increase the food affordability in the country. Okay. So those are some of the advices that we are putting on the table at this point in time. All
right. Now that you're talking about imports, next time when we talk, we will talk about the issue of getting a balance of skills regarding import and export ratio, but that's for another time. So I'm holding you on to that. Coming live from Pretoria studios is Dr. Sifiso Ntombela, who is an agricultural economist with the National Agricultural Marketing Council. Let's take a break.
Thank you for that. Oh, that was nice.
On in my ears.
SABC News continues to gauge our democracy throughout 2019 by highlighting the successes, failures, and challenges. Democracy Gauge is back on SA Today every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. It's 25 years in review of all aspects of the South African democratic experience, and you remain in the heart of the story. SABC News, independent, impartial.
SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story.
Hello again, everybody. Bafana Bafana, they've scraped through to the knockout stages of the Africa Cup of Nations football